e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop e5, knight f6, castle kingside, knight takes e4, d4, knight d6, bishop takes c6, d takes c6, d takes e5, knight f5, queen takes d8 check, king takes d8, knight c3, bishop d7, b3, h6, bishop b2, king c8, rook a d1, b6, knight e2, c5, c4, bishop c6, knight f4, king b7, knight d5, knight e7, rook f e1, rook g8, knight f4, g5, knight h5, rook g6, knight f6, bishop g7, rook d3, bishop takes f3, rook takes f3, bishop takes f6, e takes f6, knight c6, rook d3, rook f8, rook e4, king c8, f4, g takes f4, rook takes f4, rook e8, bishop c3, rook e2, rook f2, rook e4, rook h3, a5, rook h5, a4, b takes a4, rook takes c4, bishop d2, rook takes a4, rook takes h6, rook g8, rook h7, rook takes a2, rook takes f7, knight e5, rook g7, rook f8, h3, c4, rook e7, knight d3, f7, knight takes f2, rook e8 check, king d7, rook takes f8, king e7, rook c8, king takes f7, rook takes c7 check, king e6, bishop e3, knight d1, bishop takes b6, c3, h4, rook a6, bishop d4, rook a4, bishop takes c3, knight takes c3, rook takes c3, rook takes h4, rook f3, rook h5, king f2, rook g5, rook f8, king e5,